Let's build Todoroki from My Hero Academia in Dungeons & Dragons. This is going to be a bit of a weird build, but I think it's perfect as far as the duality of what Todoroki is as a character. And if you want to follow along with the character sheet, there's a link for it down below. Starting with the species, we're still going to stick with human. This comes with a feat right away, and we're going to go with tough, mostly because we need the extra health, and this gives us an extra 2 hit points of health per level of this overall build, and we need that health because our armor class is going to be a little lacking, so we need a little bit of something to help back us up. When it comes to a background, I'm actually going to choose Noble because Todoroki's dad is the number 2, then number 1 hero, and being the son of the number 1 hero feels like royalty in this universe. This gives us the skilled feat, giving us proficiency in 3 more skills. So we're going to grab acrobatics, arcana, and perception. We'll have a set of starting ability scores that look like this, which is a bit of a weird point spread, but it'll make sense soon. Jumping into our first of 2 classes because we need that duality in the build, we're going to be starting with a sorcerer. And this is where we're going to get all of our fire side that we inherited from our dad. Everything related to being a sorcerer is going to be all about that side of your heritage. And Todoroki's dad, Endeavor, is definitely very fire-based. We get 2 skills by choosing a sorcerer, so we're going to go with intimidation because that feels more fitting for Endeavor as far as an idea of what you'd inherit from him. And then we'll also grab insight so that way you can understand criminals a bit better. You also get some spell casting, obviously, because you're a sorcerer, and that spell casting can get boosted up because you have the feature innate sorcery. So for 1 minute, you can activate this innate sorcery, whether that's surrounding yourself in the element that you're focusing on, but most sorcery stuff, again, is going to be focused on fire. This makes it so for 1 minute, any sorcery spells you cast, the DC of any saving throws is increased by 1, and you get advantage on any attack rolls related to your sorcery spells. You can only use this feature twice per long rest. But speaking of those spells, we're going all fire for all of our sorcery stuff. This only won't be true for 2-ish spells / cantrips. So we'll grab Control Flames and Firebolt as far as cantrips, but we'll also grab Sorcerer's Burst, which allows you to choose any element. So if you want to focus more on your fire side or your ice side, you can do either. And Sorcerer's Burst is a new cantrip that got added in 2024, and I absolutely love it. It does a D8 of elemental damage, which you get to choose the element per rank of the cantrip. But if you roll an 8 on any of those damage die, you get to roll another d8 and add it to the damage. But the maximum amount of additional d8s that you can add is equal to your ability score modifier, meaning that once you max out your charisma, which is the main ability used for sorcerers, you can eventually, if you're really lucky, add up to 5d8 worth of damage. Then when it comes to some first level spells, we want to grab Burning Hands to blast some fire, Feather Falls to reduce your fall speed, but that's mostly just blasting towards the ground, which could probably be more the cold damage, leading to more of a slope that you throw in place. And then we're immediately taking a break from Sorcerer, because early on in the show, you really reject the fire-based side of your abilities, and you dive into the colder side of your heritage with your mother's abilities, all relating to ice. And frankly, this is what Todoroki is all about very early in the show. And he's much more of an intellectual type of person. So I wanted to focus more on an intelligence style of casting. So we're going to dive over to Wizard. And Wizard is where we're going to focus all of our cold-based spells. And this is actually going to solve a major issue in D&D when you're multiclassing with different ability scores relating to different types of spells, because usually if you multi-class, you're supposed to use the ability score modifier tied to whatever you're doing the casting through, and that can get a little confusing sometimes. For example, if you do Firebolt, but you happen to be able to get Firebolt from being a sorcerer and a wizard, you'd have to choose which class you're casting it from and use the appropriate ability score modifier. However, if you just know I'm using intelligence for all of my cold spells and charisma for all of my fire-based spells, that makes it a little bit easier. The only one this won't apply for at the moment is Sorcerer's Burst when you're doing a cold-based attack. So right when you become a wizard, you get some more spell casting, and we're going to grab some more cantrips, but focusing on the cold side. Grabbing Frostbite and Ray of Frost as far as cantrips, and then as far as a first level spell, we'll grab Ice Knife, and we're also going to grab Shield. It's a very defensive spell, and we don't have a lot of defensive abilities at the moment. And think of this as throwing up an ice wall to block any damage coming at yourself. And make sure to also grab Mage Armor while you're here, which we won't need a little later, but for right now, we do. You get a few other things early on from being a wizard, like Arcane Recovery, allowing you to regain some spell slots on a short rest, but we'll jump right up to Wizard level 3, which gives us access to second level spells, because you're really focusing more on the mom side until you can somewhat accept the things that you inherited from your dad. At level 3 of being a wizard, you get access to second level spells. So we'll grab Hold Person for when you freeze somebody in place, and really amping up that idea, also grab Rhyme's Binding Ice that can do some cold damage while at the same time locking them in place, reducing their speed to 0. Also at level 3 of being a wizard, you get access to a wizard subclass, and you're much more about just straight up offensive abilities most of the time, unless you're just defending yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into the Evoker subclass. This gives you the feature Evocation Savant. So you get to choose 2 wizard spells that are automatically added to your spell list. We'll make sure that one of those is the Rhyme's Binding Ice, but we need another ice spell. So we'll grab Snillix Snowball Swarm, which is a little hard to say. Basically, you unleash a swarm of snowballs, dealing a sphere of cold damage. Also, when you choose to be an evoker, you get the feature Potent Cantrip. So if you're doing any cantrip from either being a sorcerer or a wizard, because it does not specify, you automatically get to deal at least half damage with the cantrip. So if the attack misses or they succeed on their saving throw against whatever you're doing, they're still going to take at least half damage. Then at 4th level of Wizard, you get an ability score improvement, and this side is focused all on the intelligence casting, so we're going to boost up our intelligence by 2 points. 5th level of Wizard gives you Memorize Spell, so you can swap out spells in your spellbook a little easier, but we don't have an insane amount of spells in this build, so you don't have to worry about that very much. However, you also get access to 3rd level spells from being a wizard, and the only ice-based spell at 3rd level is going to be Sleet Storm, basically making an entire cylinder worth of area very, very icy and very, very hard to move across. 6th level of being an evoker wizard gives us Sculpt Spells. So when you cast any evocation spell, you can choose a number of creatures equal to 1 plus the spell's level, and any creature in that area of your choice automatically succeeds on the saving throw. And if it would damage those creatures, they take 0 damage instead of half damage. 7th level of Wizard gives us access to 4th level spells, so we'll go ahead and grab Ice Storm, which is exactly what it sounds like, dealing some bludgeoning and cold damage. At 8th level of Wizard, we get another ability score improvement. And I'm going to go ahead and start to accept our dad being Endeavor a little bit more and forgiving a little bit of what he did being a terrible father in young Todoroki's life. Because in My Hero Academia, he's not a great dad. So we'll put 1 point into intelligence and 1 point into charisma. Then at 9th level of Wizard, we get access to 5th level spells. So we'll grab Cone of Cold, because that's another massive ice blast, and we'll upgrade our Hold Person for Hold Monster. Then at 10th level of being a wizard, we get Empowered Evocation, thanks to being an evoker. So any evocation spell from the wizard side of your casting, you get to add your intelligence modifier to your damage. Then 11th level of Wizard gives us access to 6th level spells. So we'll grab Investiture of Ice and Wall of Ice, which are going to be the last ice-based spells we're going to grab, because we're only going to take 1 more level in Wizard. Jumping up to level 12 gives us another ability score improvement. So we're going to put 1 more point into both intelligence and charisma, because we're finally accepting the more fire-based side of our inherited powers from Endeavor. Granted, if you wanted to do better optimization here, you would just focus on 1 ability score at a time, but I liked the more thematic approach, because My Hero Academia is much more about growth of the character. And at this point, you're much more accepting of that fire-based side. So let's dive back over to being a sorcerer. And at 2nd level of sorcerer, we get meta magic. So we get a bunch of sorcery points equal to the amount of levels we have in sorcerer, and we can spend them on meta magic. We get 2 options for our meta magic right away. We'll grab Quicken Spell, allowing you to cast a spell that would take an action and use it as a bonus action instead. And then we'll also grab Transmuted Spell, so you can turn any fire or ice-based spell from one to the other element. This is only going to apply for very specific spells that I'm going to call out though. At 3rd level of Sorcerer, you get access to 2nd level sorcery spells. So we're going to grab all the fire stuff with Agonazer's Scorcher, Flame Blade, Flaming Sphere, Scorching Ray, and then Dragon's Breath, but that can be fire or ice. Also at 3rd level of Sorcerer, we get access to a Sorcerer subclass. So we're going to choose Draconic Sorcerer. This makes it so we get Draconic Resilience. This is actually really good to take early on if you get the chance to, because then we don't have to worry about having mage armor because our armor class is now 10 plus our dexterity modifier plus our charisma modifier. And our hit point maximum is increased by 3, and we get an additional 1 hit point for every level in Sorcerer going forward. 4th level of Sorcerer gives us another ability score improvement, so we'll boost up our charisma by 2 more points. 5th level gives us Sorceress Restoration, so we can regain some sorcery points on a short rest if we need to. But it also gives us access to 3rd level sorcery spells. So we're going to grab the ever so popular Fireball, but we're also going to grab the only other spell that you might want to transmute. That's Asherdalen's Stride. This usually makes it so flames just burst out from your feet and you're doing fire damage to anything you come near, but I would transmute this spell into ice because most of the time your boost in speed that you would get from this is you riding ice in the anime My Hero Academia. So I like that idea a bit more, and it just generally makes a bit more sense. So I would go ahead and turn that into ice, like you're riding ice and dealing cold damage instead of fire damage. 6th level of being a Draconic Sorcerer gives us Elemental Affinity, so you can add your Charisma modifier to 1 type of elemental damage. And this side is all about fire, so we're going to boost up our fire damage, allowing us to add our charisma modifier to any fire damage we deal. 7th level of Sorcerer gives us Sorcery Incarnate. So if you're all out of uses of your innate sorcery, you can spend 2 sorcery points to use it anyways. And if your innate sorcery is active, you can use 2 metamagic options at the same time. Also at this level, you get access to 4th level spells. So we're going to grab Fire Shield, which actually applies to both fire and ice related stuff, but we'll also grab Wall of Fire. Then at 8th level of Sorcerer, we get another ability score improvement. But this is max level overall, so we get to choose an epic boon. So we're going to choose the Boon of Spell Recall. This allows us to boost up our charisma by 1 more point, maxing it out, making it so our full integration of both the mom and dad sides are totally in place now, because both our intelligence and charisma are maxed out, meaning our fire and ice spells are both at max level. But this boon does also give us the feature free casting. So whenever we cast a spell of 1st through 4th level, we can roll a d4. And if we roll the same number of the spell slot we used, we don't use any spell slot, really giving you a 25% chance of any low-level casting being for free. I used to really love My Hero Academia, and I kind of miss the old days of it, but it's still not a bad show, no matter what some people like to hate on it for. If you made it all the way to the end of this build, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here helping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session.